Hi guys, welcome back to Power Tongue. Brady here. Such an honor to be going over these sacred mystical topics with you. And last time, a couple weeks ago, we talked about demons and how they manifest in our lives in a myriad of troubling ways. This time, we're going to talk about the opposite end of the spectrum: guardians of the light, higher beings, inner guides, those who are here to help us, who seek to help us evolve spiritually to eventually get to their level, and who we can access through means of spirituality like channeling, like meditation, like in trance. These are all different ways that we can access guardians of the light who seek to help us through these very troubling times that we find ourselves in. So grab a coffee, let's relax for a little while. These deep teaching episodes can be a little bit long, but they're full of so much wisdom, and I really hope you'll be blessed by it as I have been. Let's have a sip of coffee together. Oh, that is delicious. So let's talk about working with our higher beings and inner guides. So the question is, why work with higher beings? We are not alone in our spiritual journey. That right there is a beautiful, beautiful affirmation to tell yourself when you're going through these troubling times and the struggles of everyday life, which I'm sure you do. We all do. Higher beings serve as guardians, teachers, and catalysts, and they're true helpers that help us and guide us, but at the same time, they honor our free will while awakening us to our own divinity. So the means of contacting them is a sacred act of remembering who we are. And in that remembrance, in that tuning to the frequency of our reality, that is the law of one, the oneness of all things, that everything, everyone, everywhere, every what is one thing. It's all a fractalized expression of this one infinite creator. And so we talked about this last time on the demon episode, how even demons are fractalized pieces of that one infinite creator, expressions of ourself, of our own consciousness affecting our lives. The same goes for the opposite end of the spectrum. The same goes for higher beings, for our higher selves, for angels, for whatever your expression of spirituality calls it. So if we remember who we are, we can remember that we are not alone, that we have a team working with us. Who are they? They're the law of one. Gives us some insight on this as the Confederation of Planets. These are all higher density beings that are seeking to help us. They are in charge of protecting and guarding our spiritual evolution. If you grew up in a more Christian mindset, angelic hosts, the Elohim, the Council of Elohim. These are angels that sit on the council around Yahweh, the Father, and watch and not meddle with, but do have influence over reality. That's the Christian mystic mindset of this. Invisible helpers is a Rosicrucian concept. They're beings that help from other spiritual planes of reality. A more Jungian or alchemical mindset would refer to them as inner guides and archetypes. You know, the archetypes of strength, the archetype of wisdom. These are timeless archetypes that through all densities of reality can help us and guide us on our way through spiritual evolution. But all of these have one thing in common, that they're all expressions of a higher density of love and wisdom. They're all expressions of the goodness, of the love of that one infinite creator, Adonai. Adonai, in his perfection, gives us expressions of love and wisdom to help us on our way if we choose to tune into that. So you could tune into the negativity, which is like what we talked about last time in the demon episode, or you can tune into love and wisdom, love and light, and see the positive nature of reality unfold before your very eyes. So I want to dig in deeper on the Law of One perspective, because the Law of One is the text that we reference on this channel the most, because it absolutely changed my life. The Law of One, in the Law of One, Rod describes the Confederation of Planets as a group of benevolent beings across dimensions. Now, as you rise through the densities of reality, you become a part of this collective consciousness. And we've touched on that before in other episodes, but it's a pretty advanced concept that's hard to quantify. But right now, you feel like you're an individual person. You are yourself. Now, as you rise up in densities and evolve, you become merged with other beings around you. So there could be, say, like 6 million beings in your social memory complex. So that counts as one being in this confederation of planets. So use the exponent on that, and how many billions and trillions of individual fractals, and at the same time a collective consciousness, is a part of the confederation of planets. All different types of beings and cultures and races, and just holy, there's a lot of beings in the confederation of planets. And Ra tells us that their mission is to serve free will. So they offer us guidance without control. And if there's any negatively oriented entity that would seek to infringe itself on your free will, that would seek to take your free will from you, that's when the Confederation of Planets steps in and removes them from your path. Because that's not the will of the One Infinite Creator. The will of the One Infinite Creator is that you would learn love and light, learn to be your polarized being, either love and light towards yourself or love and light towards others. Those are the two paths, the two polarities, but that you would, with free will, choose that path. So there's negatively oriented entities that would seek to push you towards service to self. Why? Because service to self is a path with an end. It removes you from the infinity and holds you down into lower levels of consciousness. So these negatively oriented entities would seek to hold you back so that as the collective, we would not evolve. Because once 55% of us choose a service to others mentality, which I believe that we have done, and we are in the process of harvesting and evolving to a higher density of consciousness. Once, where was I going with that? Once so many of us choose that path, we will evolve. So these negatively oriented entities will try to hold us down. So the Confederation of Planets is actually an entity or a group of entities that we can seek the guidance of through tuning in with our pure intention. And so this is how, in the beginning of the Law of One transmissions or channeling or whatever you call it, a group of meditators at Love and Light Research reached out through channeling with pure intention, and they received the call from Ra, who is a member of the Confederation of Planets. That's how we can seek their guidance. It's not an exclusive thing that only LL Research could do. We can all do it. We can all tune into that frequency if we ground ourselves with pure intention, which is a lot harder than you think. But absolutely possible for any of us. Another sip of coffee now. So cultures throughout history, throughout antiquity, and even in modern day, have confused these beings, these higher beings, these angels, these whatever, with distant gods. Ra told us in the Law of One that the early Egyptians did that with them. They, instead of being beings that were sent to help them along their path, they started to worship them and call them gods. And that's the thing about gods. Like, a real god doesn't crave your worship. They don't want to be worshipped or pedestalized. They want you to awaken to that God consciousness within you. We call it Christ consciousness. That Jesus, it's not like this is a Christianized concept if you grew up around organized religion. Jesus didn't want you to worship him as a god or to be his servant or slave or whatever. He wanted you to tune into your own Christ consciousness, your own divinity, and see that these works that he did, what did he say in the Bible? Greater things shall you do. Greater things are possible. You can do what he did in the recorded history of his ministry and that much more. Because these higher beings, they're not distant gods that are trying to enslave us. They are archetypes of the possibility of our own spiritual awakening and evolution. So tune into that and see that you have the power to absolutely do beautiful and magnificent things. So let's look at it from a different perspective to really try to pound in what angels are or whatever. Let's look at the Rosicrucian perspective, which is another path that heavily influenced my life as I did a nice bit of study under Rosicrucians. Rosicrucianism describes the invisible helpers. They're advanced souls aiding from the spiritual realms. One of the main concepts in Rosicrucianism is these layers of reality that all intersect, like they have, Heindel has that idea of a sponge in a glass with water and sand. These are all different densities, just like the Law of One says. Each of these is different densities, so they can fill in the cracks of other densities around them. Anyway, Rosicrucianism describes these advanced souls that can actually influence things in other densities, not necessarily manifesting in the physical form, but they can send spiritual ideas and initiations through these barriers, through these realms. These invisible helpers, they don't ever try to lead us astray. They don't try to mess with us. Their work is that of healing. Their work is that of teaching. Their work is that of protecting the seekers and the mystics who seek them. They don't force their ideas on us, which is why modern Christianity is failing, because Christians are trying to force their ideology on the masses to proselytize and convert people that are of their own different beautiful faiths. And we shouldn't take that from them. The Rosicrucian concept seeks harmony. Harmony through all of these different faiths, all of these different cultures, all of these different ideas and expressions of the love of that one infinite creator. If it doesn't harm anybody, it can be an expression of Adonai. We need to accept that there's one celestial chord moving through all different faiths and cultures, and anybody attached to that chord is in tune with the one infinite creator. So these invisible helpers aspire to someday teach you enough that you can become an invisible helper yourself. That's like high-level Rosicrucianism and high-level Freemasonry. And all of this, eventually you become a being that can permeate different realms of reality and help your brothers and sisters throughout the universe. Not just here on Earth, all over creation, which is a lot more than just here on Earth. This is some really bizarre, high spiritual concepts. Let's try to ground this into a more Jungian perspective or an alchemical perspective. And in doing so, we have our inner guides. Jung would say they're archetypes and inner teachers activated by spiritual work, that if you do enough of this, say, shadow work or meditation or whatever practice you do, Jung would say that these archetypes can become inner guides to show you the way forward, to lead you down the proper path. So these angels and higher beings and whatever, they're not always external beings trying to communicate with you. They're a reflection of your own higher self. So before you say, well, what about all that stuff you just said in the previous slides? This is the law of one. Again, this is what we really need to hammer in, that even a separate entity or a separate being is still you. You are all there is. It's the universe. Y-O-U-niverse. That's the reality of everything. You and me are the same thing. We are one being. We are all expressions of God. living and experiencing itself for the sake of play, for the sake of experiencing itself. So, our own higher selves, angels, invisible helpers, the Confederation of Planets, it's all God. It's all God. Everything is God. God, God, God. God is everything. The universe, the path, positivity, everything is you. You are everything. I don't know how I can hammer that in any clearer. That's the law of one, in a very, very simplified nutshell. Look at the old Hermetic adage, as above, so below. As within, so without. That speaks to the same reality. Your higher self, how that higher self orients itself is how you on your path will orient yourself. Now, there are karmic implications to that. We've done videos on karma. You can check out on our channel and see how karma actually affects your life path, because it's crazy. So we need to tune into communion with these guides, communion with our higher self, communion with our soul purpose. We're going to get into this in a coming presentation, but before you're even born, your soul chooses a path to go down. Why? Well, because we have a lot of lessons to learn. So we choose that before we incarnate here on Earth. Oh, reincarnation? Yeah, it's all real. It's all true. YOLO is the biggest lie ever told. So once we tune into the frequency that is our soul's purpose, beautiful, beautiful things can happen. So there's inner guides and there's external guides. They're really one and the same thing according to the law of one, but in spirituality and esotericism, we do separate them a little bit. Inner guides rise from our own soul memory. This is between incarnations. There's work for our soul to do. Now, time is a little bit different out there where our higher selves reside. It's not like a linear thing where we have lifetimes and then planning and lifetimes and planning. This all happens in one blink moment of that one infinite creator thinking and believing this all into reality. But our souls have chose our path. That's the main part of that. External guides offer assistance from beyond our current density. So they are fractalized portions of God or mirror reflections of ourself. However, they can be many, many, many densities in reality higher than us, thus seeming like a separate entity, thus seeming like somebody else, like Ra. Ra doesn't seem like we are Ra. Am I Ra? In a sense, yes, I'm Ra. But I'm also an individualized fractal of God separate from Ra. And that's how we get this individual personality. That's how we get this individual consciousness. We're a part of this one big collective consciousness of God, and we've also been granted our own fractalized consciousness. Both inner and external guides honor our sovereignty. They honor our free will, and if it is seeking to take away your free will, then it's not a guide, then it's not an angel, then it's not positive, then it's not God. It's a negatively oriented entity on the service to self path. So in this big dance of the spirit, boundaries dissolve in love. That's how we can tune in with these beings across different dimensions, densities, whatever you call it in your practice. So how can we contact them? Because we can contact them and we can glean a lot of wisdom from them. Well, like we said earlier, set a pure, loving intention. When you meditate, when you focus on your breath, when you slow down and you quiet the world around you, quiet your mind. Don't obsess over communing with these higher beings. Quiet your mind and be still, and like the yogis would say, empty your mind. And in doing so, that opens your heart to receive the inpouring. Like in Christianity, they call it the inpouring of the Holy Spirit, or the Holy Spirit came upon them. That was from opening their heart through quieting their mind. You can do it in all different ways according to your practice: prayer, meditation, sacred visualization, affirmation. There's all different ways of tuning into the frequency that is these higher beings. And by the way, if you are thinking about tuning and frequencies and stuff like that, on our Substack right now, we've been doing a series on the Gospel of Thomas, which teaches us to tune into this Jesus frequency, to tune into this Christ consciousness. There's been a lot of wisdom. And we're only on the first few portions of the Gospel of Thomas. So that's powertongue.substack.com. We have a lot of powerful information on that blog. So check it out. No pressure. Just check it out. So in quieting your mind and meditating and using affirmations, invite connection. Then listen. The reason sometimes we can't hear our higher self communicating with ourselves because we're too busy talking to them. And in prayer too, in Christianity, it's like, God, I need you. I want you. Fill my heart. Be there for me. Help me with this. Help me with that. I need this. I'm so sorry for this. Blah, blah, blah. And we say so much. When are we supposed to hear from God when we're constantly talking? Just be in the presence of God and let God communicate with you. That's where the real magic happens. And be very sensitive in your listening, because when it comes to these beings, subtlety is in their nature. They're not going to, boom, smack you and give you your Paul on the road to Damascus, for a Christian metaphor, moment. No, sometimes it's a very subtle nudge, a very subtle influence. Subtlety is in their nature. So we practice our discernment. We live in awareness of our sovereignty, and we discern those that would seek to lead us one way or the other towards our polarization. Not every voice is a true guide. Some voices will feed us negativity. You're fat, you're ugly, you're not worthy, you're a loser, you'll never amount to anything, you're nothing, it's your fault they left you, it's your fault they cheated on you, you deserve all this bad stuff that's happening to you. That is obviously not the voice of an inner guide or a higher being. Obviously. Hallmarks of true guidance is peace, empowerment, clarity. This is how you know it's of God. True beings never demand worship or submission. So this is why in the Old Testament, some of this talk of Yahweh is bullshit. Because God doesn't want to enslave you. He doesn't demand your worship. He doesn't demand that you be a slave to him. He wants you to wake up to the Godhood within you. So if you have a being that's like, bow to me, worship me, serve me, obviously not a higher guide, not a positive being. This is why if you listen to true crime, man, we're really connecting this across all different genres and mediums. If you listen to true crime, a lot of times serial killers are like, I heard a voice, told me to kill them, it told me to do this. And then spirituality gets a bad rap because psychos are hearing voices too. Well, those are not positive voices. Those are negative voices, and they are not, well, yes, they have mental illness, but they're not different than us. We're all capable of hearing these negative ideas and negative voices. An idea of this is self-harm, when you want to harm yourself. A true guide, a true positive being of God would never want you to harm yourself. Obviously. So when you hear that, you know you're dealing with something of the demonic nature. Something of that negative path. And we talked about that in the last episode. Check that out. If in doubt, affirm your sovereignty. Know that you, as a fractalized projection of God in this giant consciousness simulation that you're living in, you have sovereignty over all these beings, and you can cast it away and step away. Like when Jesus was casting out demons, we all have that ability. Any negativity that comes upon you must stand down to you when you invoke your sovereignty. So there are true signs of contact, how we know when we've actually tuned into a positive frequency, a feeling of overwhelming love or peace. This is how Carla from LL Research knew that she was tuned into a real, positive, benevolent being because love and light poured through into their density. There were subtle, high frequency impressions. There was no fear, no urgency. If something's like, right now you have to do this, there's no time, right now, right now, right now, it's not a positive entity. That is a negative entity that is using a fear-based approach, trying to invoke fear. Do not fear, do not fear, do not fear. What do the angels in the Bible always tell people when they communicate with them? Do not fear, be not afraid, because there is no urgency in this law of one. Nothing matters when you're part of this collective consciousness. That's the reality of the universe. Y-O-U, universe. I have to say that every time because I love that expression of our reality. Guidance that respects your free will and deepens your inner knowing or gnosis. That's a positively oriented entity. That's an angel. That's a higher being. You've tuned in with the God frequency. And gentle nudges towards the truth. That is real. If it's a forceful command, cast it down in your sovereignty. It's bullshit. So you can strengthen the connection to make yourself more aware of the presence of these beings, more in tune with their frequency. You can do this through daily grounding and purification processes. Be present, be grounded. Take your shoes and socks off. Touch the ground of Mother Earth with your bare feet. There's a lot of power in that. Gratitude opens stronger channels of light. Gratitude is the strongest frequency we can use. Tune into gratitude. Be grateful. Be happy. Be loving. Be filled with love. Be filled with light, and you'll strengthen your connection to the divine. Act on small pieces of received guidance. Every time you get something that you believe to be an angelic nudge or your guardian angel telling you something or your higher self telling you something, don't ignore it. Act on it. And in doing so, they'll know that you're taking them seriously and they'll commune with you more. And know that trust grows on experience, not through blind belief. Okay? You can't just blindly accept everything that comes through the ether to you. I've known people in the Christian faith that it's like every little thing, every little idea they get, they're like, God told me this, God told me that, God told me I need to buy this orange, God told me I need to go here today, God told me this, Some of that's just your own ideas. It's your individuality expressing itself. That's what life is. It's just a series of neurons firing off in your brain telling you something or the other. Know that not all of that is a spiritual being from beyond this density trying to communicate with you. We're just going to move through this really fast because I've been trying to keep these under a half hour because I know it can be boring as I drone on and on about this spiritual stuff. Become a helper yourself. Okay? Every act of love strengthens the grid of light. Service to others is the path of the true adept. Once you choose to polarize towards a service to others mindset, you become on the spiritual trajectory to evolve towards the betterment of the collective consciousness and harvest to fourth density and the incredible path that we're headed towards. You are both a student and teacher, both seeker and the guide. Guardians, awakened guardians, your higher self is a guardian angel of sorts, and know that you are on the evolutionary path to be that same higher self. That's what reality is. Reintegration with your higher self, reintegration with God. That's what spiritual evolution is. And I wanted to leave you with this, a closing blessing, something that you can use as an affirmation if you're trying to commune with higher beings. Meditate on this. Guardians of light, brothers and sisters beyond the veil, we open our hearts in love and unity. Guide us gently, teach us wisely. May we walk as sovereign beings and one day become helpers in turn. And what a beautiful affirmation to practice. What a beautiful affirmation to live by. Anyway, thank you so much if you made it to this far. I know I do drone on and on, but this is just like spiritual downloads that come into my mind, and I need to say it out loud, and it's for me just as much as it's for you. We're working through these topics together. I'm no spiritual guru. I'm no expert. I'm just a seeker, a mystic on the same path as you. And together, on this path of reintegration to the oneness of all things, may we be blessed and be filled with love and light. Thank you. Goodbye.